Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. I am a host of two radio shows, both with a Christian orientation, although I'm well able and concerned and want to hear all views and opinions of every kind, and I do not exclude any path of thinking or religious views. But I am a Christian and I'm not changing in that respect. I also write books. I've written 5 books, and I'm planning a number on a new one on the Psalms and miracles and on the sayings of Christ. And my other books, Essays in the Christian Worldview, Essays in Faith, Culture, Politics, and Philosophy, and the Parables, have sold well. The Essays in the Christian Worldview has sold widely to the entire University of California system. Uh, and so I can talk more about my work, but I want to get into a topic that is very dear and close to me, something which our society and the mainline media have decided to sideline, ignore, and basically say it doesn't exist. But it does exist and exists in this country. And let me tell you why. I know that a pro-life or pro-creationist person, a Christian, cannot get a job in a mainline standard university. They are excluded. And if you go to CNN or any of the major networks, when was the last time, my dear ladies and gentlemen, my dear critical thinking friends, when was the last time you heard a Christian being heard on those networks? It doesn't happen because they are excluded. They are excluded in academia in this country, and they are excluded in the mainline media. But let me go on. There is not merely, in the United States, the persecution is ideological, which I just described, but I want to go more into the active killings and murders and rapes and active assaults on Christian people in the world. Most recent, I belong to an organization called the Voice of the Martyrs. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. There is great, severe prejudice and persecution of Christians in India. And Hindu nationalist leaders, in an attack on Christians, they killed and resulted in the deaths of more than 100 Christians, 5,800 homes destroyed, and 300 churches and Christian institutions such as orphanages were wrecked. This is just one example of what is going on. This is called the Kanda Hamel massacre. It is a product of Hindu nationalism, and it emanated from apparently the alleged death of a Hindu in the state of Orissa. So this particular massacre is just one slight example of the persecution of Christians in the world. Let me tell you more that's going to shock your socks. I belong to this organization's Voice of the Martyrs. And let me tell you, this particular organization is factually accurate about the persecutions of Christians in the world. After the 2008 massacre of 100 Christians, a number of 7 Christian men were charged with the murder that ignited these riots, and they spent 11 years in prison incorrectly, having nothing to do with that previous murder. And then, in addition, I think you should know that in Indonesia, it is reported in the Voice of the Martyrs publication that long-established churches in Indonesia have been forced to shut down as a result of pressure from Islamist groups. And many other Christian churches, 3 other churches on different islands, were forced to close this year. This is just one example, a couple of examples of what is going on in this world against the Christian faith. Let me fill you in even more, because the mainline, you will not get these facts from the mainline media in our society. Maybe they know about it, maybe they don't want to report it, maybe they reported inaccurately. Let me give you another example. In Nigeria, Boko Haram regularly rapes, tortures, and kills Christian villagers. In July of 2020, jihadists killed civilians in Nigeria. 6 Christians, Islamic militants, killed Christians in the Plateau state in Nigeria. And in June of this year, a Nigerian student died after an attack on his church. And this is a regular occurrence in Nigeria, where Boko Haram, an Islamic militant organization, regularly murders, rapes, and kills Christian villagers. Let me say, ladies and gentlemen, that as a Christian, I have only but love and consideration and concern for my Muslim brothers and sisters. This is not the majority of that society that does this. It is a minority, but nevertheless, these are the facts. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know me and you hear me more, you will find that I am an intellectually honest individual. Let's take a look at Pakistan. In Pakistan, there's a blasphemy law that says if you say something against Muhammad, you can not only be jailed, but executed. So that is the plight of a person who converts to Christianity and says something against Muhammad. In July of this year, in Pakistan, an 11-year-old boy was beaten by a Muslim businessman. And that's just one example of what is going on. And after a prayer service was targeted by Pakistani police, and a church was forced to remove a cross from its steeple in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality. This is the worldwide persecution of Christians. And for the first 400 years in this world, Christians were severely persecuted by the Roman government, and many were beaten and tortured and killed. Origen, one of the most outstanding Christian thinkers of his time, had his bones broken. And the reason why he was martyred and attacked was because the Christians of that day would not worship the Roman emperor. And many, many were martyred and killed, and they are being martyred in today's world. In Iran, 3 church members are serving 10-year sentences on charges of acting against national security. They're all members of the Church of Iran. One was sentenced to death, and it was acquitted. And they're all serving 10-year sentences for being Christians. And in February 2020, Kamal, Muhammad, and Sharuz, and others were arrested in a house church meeting along with 6 other Christians during the same time period, and again were put in prison for 5 years for acting against state security and promoting Zionism. Finally, the situation for Christians in Algeria is critical and serious. The Algerian government has shut down 3 churches this week and forced Christians from their buildings and arrested some who protested the crackdown. 15 Protestant churches have been shut down in Algeria since January of 2018. And one church, the Full Gospel, was raided. The Source of Life Church and the Light Church were shut down. And there are blasphemy laws in which you say something against Muhammad, you will be paid the price. 11 churches in Algeria were closed in 2020. Let me add, ladies and gentlemen, I have no hatred or hostility to our Muslim brothers and sisters, but I have to honestly point out that Christians are persecuted in those societies, perhaps not by the majority, by a small minority, but nevertheless, it's true. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if Black lives matters and if feminism matters, why don't Christian lives matter? Why does our society walk over the dead bodies of our Christian brothers and sisters and is so concerned about the undocumented, is so concerned about, and I don't say that there shouldn't be concern for those people. Jesus loves everybody and died for them, but the mainline media are very concerned about Black Lives Matter. They're very concerned about the undocumented, but they have little concern for the persecution of Christians throughout the world. Let me give you other examples. Uh, the Coptic Church in Egypt has been attacked, and its monasteries and its churches and Coptic believers have been attacked and assaulted. And in India, a Indian pastor, Brian Neeran, was detained for 7 months. And this is a constant situation. If you want to be informed of these facts, I ask you to look at Voice of the Martyrs, uh, uh, where you can get the facts here as to what is happening throughout the world to Christian believers who harm no one, are a danger to no one. Yet, in some sense, perhaps to those regimes, Christ and Christianity are a threat, and only something that is true is a threat. A lie is not a threat. And it appears that Jesus Christ and Christianity in many, many societies is a threat. Certainly, he challenges those in power with his concern for the poor and poverty and underclass, and that is a position that a totalitarian government cannot abide. Uh, um, there's also Christians are persecuted in Sudan. In Algeria, a church cannot be built, a Bible cannot be distributed. Uh, the examples are so numerous that I would like to talk about this again and give more examples of what I'm driving at. I ask you to concern yourself with the persecution and killing and murders of Christians throughout the world. I ask you to take a look at it, to give some thought to it, and to approach your congressman, your state assembly, who are so concerned, possibly, about the undocumented. Maybe they should be. I assume I have as much concern for those people as anybody. But the fact of the matter is, Christians, their bodies lie in the street in these countries. Their churches lie in ruins. The Chinese government has a history of tearing down crosses, arresting pastors, and tearing down churches because they see Christianity as so great a threat. I can end this talk a little bit, but I do want to talk about a few other examples. In the Sudan, Christians are persecuted. And in fact, the most ancient Christian communities in the Middle East are the subject and object of a virtual genocide. Uh, it is reported an attack on one Fazima, a Muslim who, on becoming a Christian, was chased by her husband and attacked with a stick for not attending the mosque. A child, Mihak, was burned in a church in Pakistan. And in Laos, a wooden church structure was torn down. These are some of the examples of the worldwide persecutions of the Christian faith. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, why does the world, a lot of the world, hate Jesus, don't want to hear about Jesus, finds his message disturbing, finds his exclusive claim annoying? Perhaps it is the exclusive Christian claim which cannot be denied, his claim to be God. It cannot be evaded. Perhaps that is the reason that these societies and many other societies take this position, because where you are told something is objectively true, in our society, in this world, you are a political outcast, where the myth is promoted that all religions are the same. I have all respect for all religions, but I don't think they're the same. I think Hinduism is a polytheistic system. I think that Islam is monotheistic, but I don't believe it's a religion of love. Unfortunately, maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the religious system, but it appears to be mostly rote prayers and this kind of thing, which are being heard, which is fine. And I'm sure the Muslims are praying to and reaching God as they understand him. Let me make this clear. I am not prejudiced or have hostility to any nationalist group in this world. I know that Jesus laid down his life for every single human being that has ever lived, will live, and will come to live. And I think that these events, which I just described, are the products of a minority in these societies. But I think that Christians are persecuted by, to a certain extent, in these systems. And we should address the issue and concern ourselves with the issue and protest these killings of our brothers and sisters in Christ. This is as much as I want to say tonight. And I do hope I can talk again and give you a reasonable report on Christian persecution throughout the world. And I can only say that um, the reason people persecute Christians and hate Christians is because Jesus presents a message of love and salvation and concern for poverty in the underclass that disturbs, challenges, and in his exclusive claim to be God, annoys many, many people who don't want to hear anything resembling that. Hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed speaking, and I will see you again another night to talk about these issues. Night.